The Neridia Orbital Lounge was never meant for humans, or at least that was how Jack Harrison felt as he sat nursing his drink. The glass in his hand was full of a creamy, faintly metallic liquid that left a strange warmth in his throat. All around him, the architecture shimmered with weightless elegance, walls glowing faintly with captured starlight, tables hovering inches above the floor. The low hum of ethereal instruments threaded through the air like a heartbeat. He tried not to fidget, tried to look like he belonged. Earth had only been at the galactic table for a few short years, and tonight he was its only representative on the station. The lounge was quiet during off hours. Most delegates had already retreated to their chambers to rest before tomorrow's negotiations. He almost envied them almost. Then the door whispered open, and envy vanished, replaced by awe. She walked in with the grace of a storm given shape. Her skin was the first thing he noticed, a brilliant azure covered with lighter patterns that shifted as she moved, almost as if alive. Her frame was towering 8 feet of fluid strength, contained in a body outlined by a form-fitting black suit. Silver hair spilled over her shoulders, catching the light in ripples. Even among the eclectic mix of species Jack had glimpsed since arriving, she was mesmerizing. And when her eyes found his luminescent, ocean deep, he forgot to breathe. She crossed the room like a dancer who'd rehearsed each step for centuries. Jack tried not to straighten his posture too obviously, but his diplomat's instincts betrayed him. He was staring. She smiled, just slightly, revealing teeth too white to be anything but unsettling. Then she spoke, her voice a melody of wind chimes and water. "May I join you?" "Be my guest," Jack replied, gesturing to the empty stool. His voice was steadier than he felt. Not exactly a packed house tonight. She lowered herself with elegance that made even sitting look ceremonial. "I am Avaravori, cultural attaché of the Cerulean Confederation. Jack Harrison, human trade envoy," he said, offering his hand. For a heartbeat, she studied it as though analyzing a new species of insect. Then, tentatively, she took it. Her skin was cool, unexpectedly soft. "Ah, the ritual of contact," she said, lips curving. "We have studied your species extensively." The bartender, a four-armed being with brass-like skin, glided over and set another bottle of the thick milk on the counter. She lifted it, inhaling the scent with interest. "You enjoy our Lunari milk?" "It's interesting," Jack said, diplomatically. "Not quite like anything back home." Her luminous eyes widened. "Oh, your species produces milk as well." Jack chuckled. "Our females do. For their children? Only females?" Her head tilted, the silver fall of her hair shifting like liquid light. How peculiar. He took another sip to hide his grin. "Yeah, human males don't come equipped with dairy facilities." She blinked, curiosity sharpening. "But all mammalian species, even the males, must have capacity." "Nope," Jack said with a laugh. "That's strictly female territory." Something mischievous sparked across her features. She leaned closer, her scent faintly floral, and her voice dropped to a whisper. "Are you certain? Perhaps you simply have not tried." Jack nearly inhaled his drink. "Trust me, I'm familiar with my own anatomy." Without warning, her hand slipped toward the zipper of his trousers. "You mean human males have milk, too?" she asked with the earnestness of a scientist about to collect a sample. He jerked back so quickly his stool wobbled. "Whoa, that's not milk." Her hand froze mid-reach, confusion painting her features. "But the organ produces fluid. Is it not nutritional?" Jack's face burned. "It's reproductive, not consumable. Definitely not for drinking." The vibrant blue of her skin deepened into a darker shade blushing, he realized. "Oh, I have made a terrible cultural error." She withdrew her hand quickly, mortification twisting her composure. Please forgive my forwardness. I am meant to be the cultural expert. Jack couldn't help laughing, the tension dissolving like a pressure valve released. No harm done, just a misunderstanding. Among ceruleans, direct examination is considered the highest form of scientific inquiry, she said, still mortified. I should have asked permission first. On Earth, Jack replied gently, we generally keep our reproductive organs private, at least until we know each other better. Her eyes lit with interest, the embarrassment shifting into fascination. So, there is a protocol for such examinations. Fascinating. Jack shook his head, hiding his smile with another sip of Lunari milk. How had he gone from being a lonely envoy at the bar to explaining human dating customs to an 8-foot alien? Goddess, perhaps we should begin with less invasive cultural exchanges, Avera suggested. That sounds like a good idea. They talked for an hour about Earth's sprawling cities and the cerulean homeworld's harmonic oceans, about duty and survival, about how both of them had ended up on this floating station at the edge of known space. The initial faux pas faded into laughter, into the kind of anecdote that made awkwardness a bridge instead of a lull dot by the time they finished their drinks. The lounge was empty. Jack felt lighter than he had in months, carried on the current of her curiosity and unfiltered honesty. It is late, Avera said, rising with liquid grace. Tomorrow, the negotiations begin. Jack hesitated and found himself saying, maybe we could continue our cultural exchange afterward. Her smile was subtle but unmistakable. I would like that very much, Jack Harrison. Next time, I will remember to respect your biological boundaries. He watched her go, silver hair trailing like a comet's tail. For the first time since Earth had sent him out here, Jack wasn't thinking about survival or politics. He was wondering what kind of storm he had just stepped into, and he couldn't wait to see where it led. The Grand Assembly Hall pulsed with voices, 100 languages, weaving into a tapestry of diplomacy and discord. Holographic charts floated above the circular table trade routes, contested systems, mineral-rich sectors rendered in shifting light. Jack Harrison sat stiffly at Earth's solitary chair, his uniform pressed, his posture disciplined. Alone, human at a table where others commanded entourages of 3, 5, sometimes more. A reminder, as if the architecture itself were whispering. Newcomers, provisional, fragile. He scanned the room, trying not to look like he was scanning for her. And yet his gaze found her anyway. Avera Vori sat among the cerulean delegation, her silver hair now woven into elaborate braids threaded with crystals that caught the light with every breath. In her black and sapphire ceremonial garb, she seemed carved from living starlight, her presence commanding without effort. She caught his eye across the chamber and offered the barest curve of a smile. It was enough to send a surprising warmth through him, a pulse that had nothing to do with nerves. The hall quieted as Director Prell, a gelatinous being whose translucent body shimmered in shifting hues, rippled to the center. We begin, Prell intoned, voice like a bell heard through water. The disputed claims in the Proxima system. The Cerulean Confederation and Earth have submitted competing proposals. Jack's stomach nodded. Of course it would be Proxima first. Earth needed that system desperately. After the Sichla incursions had ravaged Earth's industrial belts, the Proxima mineral fields represented recovery, survival, a chance not just to rebuild, but to prove they belonged at this table. A tall figure rose smoothly from the cerulean side. Nalan Kalin, chief negotiator. His skin was a deeper indigo than Avera's, patterned with sharp geometric ridges that emphasized his severe frame. His voice was cool, clipped, each word honed like a blade. The Confederation has maintained scientific outposts in the Proxima system for 3 centuries, Nalan declared. Our claim is rooted in historical precedent and the infrastructure. We established long before humans even breached their local gravity well. A murmur of assent rippled from several delegations. Prell's form shimmered expectantly. The human delegation may respond. Jack rose, every eye on him. His mouth was dry, but the hours of briefings echoed in his mind. He let the words come, steady and clear. While we respect the cerulean presence in Proxima, observation does not constitute ownership. Earth proposes a joint development initiative, ensuring prosperity for both our peoples while respecting galactic law. Nalan's expression did not flicker, though the faintest twitch rippled along his jaw. The human proposal is unacceptable. You are untested, unproven, and dangerously volatile. The word hung heavy in the chamber. Volatile. Jack inhaled slowly, keeping his tone level. With respect, Chief Negotiator, Earth has adhered to every treaty since joining the interstellar community. We have defended our homeworld, yes, but only in response to unprovoked aggression. Nalan's eyes narrowed. The Sichla War. Your kind unleashed unprecedented brutality. Such ferocity alarms those who value wisdom over reckless fire. The chamber stirred again. The Sichla incident was still fresh in memory, a desperate defense painted by some as savagery. Jack's pulse hammered, but he stood his ground. We did what any people here would do. We survived. A ripple of dissent spread among the counselors. Then, from the cerulean ranks, a figure rose. Avera. If I may, Director Prell, she said, her melodic voice cutting through the rising tension. Nalan stiffened, but she continued. As cultural attach, I remind the Assembly that humans responded according to their values, protection of their young, survival at any cost. Context matters. To judge them solely by the intensity of their defense is to misunderstand them entirely. Jack's chest tightened. She was defending him, defending humanity in open session. Nalan's posture was iron, but his eyes flashed cold disapproval. The cultural attach oversteps her role, he said sharply. This is a matter of resources, not anthropology. But the seed had been planted. Whispers ran through the hall, some skeptical, some intrigued. Director Prell rippled with what Jack thought might be approval before calling for recess. As delegates filed out in swirls of color and chatter, Jack slipped into a quieter corridor, his mind racing. He didn't have to wait long. She found him. There, her tall form casting a shadow across the polished floor. That was intense. Jack said softly. Her luminous eyes darted around before fixing on his. Nalan is not pleased. I have been instructed to avoid further contact with you. His chest sank, though he tried not to show it. Because you spoke up? Because he suspects I may already be compromised by interest in your species. Her words were careful, but her gaze carried weight beyond them. Jack stepped closer, his voice low. Is he right? For a long heartbeat, she said nothing. Then her hand brushed against his, so lightly it might have been an accident, except it wasn't. A spark leapt through him. Perhaps, she whispered. Her patterns glimmered faintly, like stars flickering beneath her skin. There is something about humans. Your adaptability. Your warmth. The corridor was empty now, the echo of departing footsteps fading. The silence pressed in, broken only by the rush of his pulse. She should go, she said, but still she lingered, silver hair spilling forward as she leaned nearer. He found his voice. We could continue our cultural exchange, somewhere. Private. Her skin darkened into a blush that glowed faintly in the low light. That would be most educational. Jack swallowed, the diplomat in him screaming warnings. But as her eyes held his, filled with curiosity and something deeper, he knew logic had lost. Tomorrow, they would be adversaries across a table filled with sharks. Tonight, they were explorers of something far more dangerous each other. Jack's quarters were modest, a cube of polished alloy and softly pulsing lights, practical and uninspired compared to the opulence of the station. Yet when the door slid shut behind them, it felt suddenly too small, the air charged, every hum of the environmental system magnified. Avera stood in the center of the room, her height transforming the space into something ceremonial. The glow of the overhead panels slid across her azure skin, igniting the delicate patterns etched there until they shimmered like constellations. She regarded the surroundings with a faint smile, running her fingers over the desk as though she were cataloging. "Its texture, efficient," she said, melodic voice low. "You humans value function above form." Jack managed a chuckle, though his pulse was pounding. "We're practical. Cerulean quarters are probably more elaborate. They are designed to shape thought. Pools of luminescent water, resonant. Chambers for reflection." She turned, meeting his gaze directly. "But I find myself at peace here as well." The weight of her words drew him closer, until he could feel the subtle coolness radiating from her skin. For a moment, he forgot about titles, about treaties, about the precarious line he walked. He remembered only the way her luminous eyes softened when they met his. "I've been thinking about our misunderstanding," he said, voice rougher than he intended. Her lips curved upward. "As have I researched human mating rituals. Such diversity across your cultures. Fascinating." Jack barked a laugh, nerves spilling out. "So what is this, then? A research project?" Her hand found his, cool fingers interlacing with his warmer ones. "Not entirely. There is scientific curiosity, yes, but also something more primal." The touch was steady, not tentative, and Jack felt his usual defenses crumble. "Primal works for me," he murmured, raising a hand to her. Cheeked out the kiss that followed was both strange and astonishingly familiar. Her lips were cooler, but softer, tasting faintly of salt and something sweetly spiced. The luminescent markings on her skin pulsed brighter with each heartbeat, bathing the dim room in shades of soft blue. Jack felt her shiver beneath his touch, and she whispered against his neck, "Your warmth, it is like embracing a star." He hesitated, pulling back slightly. "Too much?" Her reply came like a sigh. "Perfect. Ceruleans seek heat. Our world is distant from its sun. Warmth is life." What followed became a dance of discovery. Her height, her different anatomy, should have been barriers, but instead they revealed unexpected alignments, moments where evolution's paths seemed to bend toward compatibility. She studied him with open wonder, responding to each touch with an honesty that disarmed him. When their bodies finally stilled, she lay against him, her cooler skin pressed to his, tracing glowing designs on his chest with slender fingers. "Among my people," she said softly. "To show one's markings at full luminescence is intimate. It is trust." Jack pressed a kiss to her forehead, marveling at the glowing constellations across her shoulders. "Then I'm honored." For a moment, it felt as though the galaxy had narrowed to just the two of them. But then a soft chime broke the silence. Avera reached for her discarded garments, retrieving a small device. The message displayed across its surface hardened her features instantly. She rose swiftly, pulling on her suit with sudden urgency. "What's wrong?" Jack asked, sitting up, the warmth of her body still lingering on his skin. "Nothing," she said too quickly, her voice clipped. A reminder of tomorrow's session. She avoided his eyes as she fastened her collar dot as she moved. Something slipped from a hidden pocket, landing with a faint metallic click on the floor. Jack reached instinctively, lifting it, his breath caught. A slim data chip, unmistakably, stamped with the insignia of the Earth Defense Force. "You dropped something," he said, his voice lower now, taut with suspicion. Avera's reaction was immediate, too immediate. She lunged forward, snatching it from his hand with a speed that startled him. But not before he had seen enough. "Why?" Jack said slowly. "Do you have classified Earth military data?" Her eyes, usually so expressive, shuddered into unreadable glass. She held the chip close, as though it burned. "It is not what you think?" "Then explain it," Jack demanded, climbing to his feet, the intimacy of moments ago vanishing under a surge of adrenaline. Her jaw tightened. "I cannot." Jack's chest clenched. "Can't or won't?" She met his gaze, and for the first time since he'd met her, there was fear in those luminous depths. "Jack, please. Answering you may endanger more than you realize. Are the Ceruleans planning something against Earth?" His voice was harsh now, protective instinct overtaking diplomatic training. "What's on that ship, Avera?" She hesitated, the patterns on her skin flickering like fading stars. Finally, she whispered, "Information that could change everything between our peoples." Before he could push further, she was at the door, the chip clenched tight in her hand. "Forget you saw this." And then she was gone, leaving Jack in the dim room, the sheets still warm with her presence. His mind cold with realization. He might have just slept with the enemy. Jack barely slept. The sheets still carried Avera's cool scent, but his mind replayed the glint of the EDF insignia, the panicked flash in her eyes as she snatched the chip away. Every instinct told him to report her, to send a secure transmission to Admiral Weaver and let Earth handle the breach. But another voice, quieter, stubborn, reminded him of the way her markings had glowed against his skin, the tremor of wonder in her voice when she whispered, "Your warmth is like a star dot by the time the artificial dawn lights brightened across." The station, his decision was made. He needed answers from her, not from a tribunal. The day's negotiations unfolded like a slow bleed. Proxima's mineral rights, security patrols along disputed trade routes, endless semantic sparring, all words that barely masked the looming threat beneath. Jack delivered his talking points with practiced calm, but every time he caught sight of Avera seated behind Nell and Kalen, her posture perfect, her expression schooled into neutrality, the memory of the chip burned hotter. At the recess, he made his move. He slipped from the assembly floor and circled to a side corridor, finding her where she always gravitated during breaks, near a viewport overlooking the gas giant below. Amber storms churned across the planet's vast face, titanic and indifferent. She stood rigid, hands clasped behind her back, the very image of composure, until he stopped beside her. "We need to talk," he said under his breath. Her eyes flicked toward him, then back to the storm. "Not here," she murmured. "Observation deck, East Quadrant." 20 minutes. She didn't wait for acknowledgement, only drifted back toward the Cerulean delegation. To anyone watching, they might have shared no more than a diplomat's polite nod. When Jack arrived at the deck, the wide windows stretched like cathedral walls of glass, opening to the abyss of space. The chamber was empty, lit only by the pale glow of distant suns. Avera waited, her tall frame silhouetted against the stars. She turned as he entered, her expression weary, her markings dimmer than he had ever seen. "Explain the chip," Jack said, dispensing with courtesy. "You should have reported me," she replied. Her voice lacked its usual melodic steadiness. It was raw, stripped bare. "Maybe I still will," Jack countered. "Depends on what you tell me." Silence stretched. Then she exhaled, a sound halfway between resignation and defiance. "The Confederation is not united. There are factions. Nalin and his circle believe humans are too dangerous to be allowed to expand unchecked. They whisper of a preemptive strike." The word hit like a blow. War. Jack had seen it written in briefings, projected in worst-case models, but hearing it from her lips gave it a terrifying solidity. "And you?" He pressed. "Which faction are you with?" "The one that doesn't want war." She stepped closer, forcing him to tilt his head up to meet her gaze. That chip holds your military's analysis of the Sichla conflict. Proof of what humanity can do when pushed to the edge. If I can show my council that war with Earth would be suicide, I can stop them. Jack's hands curled into fists. You stole our secrets to save us? The irony stung. Yes, she said simply. Her luminous eyes searched his face. Would your government have given them to me, had I asked? You guard strength as if it were treasure. But sometimes the only way to prevent conflict is to reveal exactly how devastating it would be. He wanted to be angry. He should have been. Yet the earnest fire in her gaze burned through his outrage. She wasn't lying, he could feel it. Why? Me? He asked. Why take the risk with me? Her hand rose, cool fingers brushing against his sleeve. Because you listen. Because you see more than threats and weaknesses. You saw me, Jack Harrison. Not just a cerulean diplomat, not just a potential adversary. That matters. The contact sent a shiver through him, though his voice stayed hard. Last night, was that part of your mission too? Her skin darkened, the faint glow of her markings shifting in patterns he was beginning to recognize as embarrassment. Ceruleans do not form bonds quickly, but with you, something bypassed restraint. Last night was no strategy. It was. He believed her. Against all reason, he believed her. Then hear me, Jack said, stepping closer. No more secrets. If we're going to stop this war, we do it my way. Through honesty. Through restraint. If you want my help, that's the price. Relief softened her features, though her eyes still glistened with worry. Restraint, she echoed. That is something my people respect, perhaps more than raw power. Show strength, but choose not to wield it. Yes, that could work. Before he could respond, the deck's intercom chimed. Incoming transmission. EDF Indefatigable, requesting docking clearance. The words froze them both. Jack looked past her at the void, where a ripple of hyperspace distortion already shimmered. His chest tightened. The newest jewel of Earth's fleet was about to emerge, a kilometer of steel and firepower, sent to make a statement. Havira's gaze turned hard, luminous eyes reflecting the growing distortion. Your people bring their warship to a peace summit. Nalin will seize on this. He will call it proof of your aggression. Jack swallowed. Then we'll have to prove him wrong. A flash of light split the darkness, and the Indefatigable slid into real space, its gunmetal hull gleaming like a blade drawn under starlight. Around them, the observation deck filled with the murmurs of arriving delegates, awe and fear in equal measure. Jack and Avera stood side by side, knowing the storm they had feared was no longer distant. It had just arrived at their doorstep. EDF Indefatigable loomed in the void like a predator at rest, its hull bristling with silent menace, every line of its design screaming human resilience. Through the observation deck's vast panes, Jack could feel the ripple of unease wash through the assembled delegates. Whispers carried in dozens of tongues. For some, the ship was awe-inspiring. For others, it was proof of every fear Nellin, Kalen had ever sown. Jack's communicator buzzed against his hip. Envoy Harrison. Captain Rivera's voice crackled, taut with tension. 2 cerulean warships just broke cover. Identified as the Sentinel and the Vigilant. They're in defensive formation. Weapons not hot yet. Jack glanced at Avera, whose markings flickered dimly in agitation. Nalin planned this, she said, voice low. Your arrival, his response. It's theater designed to corner you. Jack straightened, speaking into the cum loud enough for others nearby to hear. Maintain position, shields up, weapons cold. We're here to demonstrate capability, not provoke. Rivera hesitated, then replied, Understood, but if they twitch, we're dead in space. The observation deck vibrated with tension as Nalin strode forward, his indigo skin glinting under the artificial light. "Behold," he announced to the council, "humans claim peace, yet bring planet killers to our summit. Do you call this diplomacy?" Jack held his ground. "The indefatigable comes in peace. A warship at a summit is no more a threat than guards at a courthouse. Its purpose is to deter, not to strike." Nalin's eyes narrowed, but before he could retort, Avera stepped between them, her voice carrying clear across the chamber. "Both sides have demonstrated readiness. Now, let us show restraint. Reciprocity is the only path to trust." Director Prell's gelatinous form pulsed thoughtfully. "Agreed. A tour of the human vessel, followed by a tour of the cerulean cruiser. Transparency will speak louder than accusations." Nalin's jaw tightened, but he inclined his head. "Very well. We shall see whose restraint is real." The corridors of the indefatigable gleamed with polished steel and a quiet hum of power. Jack walked at the head of the cerulean delegation, Avara gliding silently at his side, Nalin trailing like a shadow carved from ice. Captain Rivera greeted them on the deck, his eyes scanning the visitors with a soldier's suspicion. The indefatigable can generate enough energy to sustain a small colony for a year, Jack explained as they passed the central reactor chamber, its pulsing heart shielded behind reinforced glass. "We built her to endure, not to dominate." Commander Tavari, a scarred cerulean officer, regarded the reactor with grudging admiration. Impressive output for such compact brutality, Nalin sniffed. A blunt instrument, dressed as innovation. Jack ignored him, keeping his diplomats. Smile fixed, but his gaze lingered on one of the younger cerulean officers lagging behind. The officer's hand brushed an access panel just a fraction too long, his eyes darting when Jack's gaze caught his. Something prickled down Jack's spine. He slowed, falling back until he was beside Avera. She glanced at him, her markings flickering faintly. Then her wrist communicator buzzed against her sleeve, hidden from others. She angled it just enough for him to see. A message flashed across, the display in cerulean script, but Jack had already learned enough of her language to make it out. Saboteurs aboard. Nalin planned system failure during demonstration. Jack's pulse surged, but his expression didn't change. He leaned close, voice a whisper. "Where?" "Critical junctions. Reactor conduits. Weapons relays. My sources say 3 devices." Jack forced his stride casual, but when Rivera glanced his way, he gave a subtle tilt of his head. The captain's eyes narrowed, and within seconds, 2 security officers peeled silently from formation, shadowing the suspicious cerulean lieutenant. The tour continued, Nalin demanding access to weapon systems, pressing for details. Jack deflected with polished phrases, all the while feeling sweat bead under his collar. Finally, a discreet signal buzzed on his comm. 3 devices found. Neutralized dot relief surged, tempered by anger. Sabotage here, aboard the Pride of Earths. Fleet Nalin was playing with plasma and pretending it was water dot, yet when Jack looked toward Avera, he saw the cost written on her skin. Her markings dimmed, shame and strain etched into every flicker. She was risking everything feeding him this intel. And already, whispers were slithering through the ranks, delegates murmuring about her proximity to the human envoy, about contamination, about betrayal. As the tour concluded, Nalin paused in the shuttle bay, his thin smile sharp as glass. "Educational," he said coldly. "Tomorrow, we return the courtesy aboard the Sentinel. I hope your vessel survives inspection as well as ours did." The words carried an edge Jack couldn't miss, a threat dressed as courtesy. When the delegation departed, Captain Rivera pulled Jack aside. "We just pulled enough sabotage gear out of my ship to fry half her systems. What in hell is going on?" "Political maneuvering," Jack said grimly. His eyes lingered on Avera's retreating form, her shoulders stiff under the weight of whispered accusations. And a warhawk who won't stop until someone bleeds. That night, Jack found her waiting in a quiet corner of the diplomatic lounge. The chatter died when he approached. Every eye tracked them, whispers hissing like snakes. Avera's markings were faint, her posture perfect, but brittle. "He's telling everyone I've been compromised," she said softly, her voice a thread of music straining to hold steady. "That human passion has infected me. That I can know longer be trusted." Jack's jaw clenched. "We stopped the sabotage, but he's just getting started." "There's more," she said, lowering her voice further. "Tomorrow, aboard the Sentinel, he plans an incident. A staged attack he will blame on you. A justification for retaliation against the indefatigable." Jack's blood ran cold. "Do you have proof?" "Yes, but revealing it exposes me as a spy. I would be finished." He reached for her hand, no longer caring who saw. "Then we'll find another way." Her markings brightened faintly at his touch, a flicker of defiance. "There is one option. An ancient tradition. If I claim a bond with you, cerulean law shields me from accusation. Even Nalin cannot touch it." Jack blinked. "A bond?" Her luminous eyes met his. "What you would call engagement." He almost laughed at the absurdity. "You want us to get alien engaged to stop a war?" "It would be a political arrangement only," she said, though her darkening blush told another story. Jack tightened his grip on her hand. "Then let's do it. If it keeps you safe, if it stops him, then yes." For the first time all day, her smile broke through the tension. Together then. Tomorrow, he knew, they'd step into fire. But as her fingers twined with his, Jack realized he wasn't afraid. The atrium of the station had been transformed overnight. Normally a neutral space for galas or briefings, today it glowed with solemn gravity. Translucent banners in cerulean. Blue hung from the ceiling, each thread laced with luminescent particles that shimmered like constellations. Delegates from dozens of species crowded the terraces, word of the unprecedented event spreading like fire through dry grass. Jack stood at the center, his diplomatic uniform crisp, his stomach knotted. The weight of Earth's future pressed down heavier than the metals stitched across his chest. Beside him stood Captain Rivera as his official witness, arms crossed, eyes watchful. The old soldier leaned closer and muttered, "Relax, kid. Looks like a wedding. Smells like a trap." Jack tried to smile, but it felt brittle. He couldn't stop replaying the conversation from the night before. Avera's calm voice telling him that a bond would shield her from accusation, that it would make sabotage and rumor alike fall silent under the weight of tradition. He'd agreed without hesitation, but now the scale of it unfolded before him. This wasn't just strategy anymore. This was spectacle. The atrium lights dimmed, and a hush fell over the crowd. The doors opened, and Avera entered. Jack's breath caught. She wore ceremonial robes woven from fabric that seemed alive with light, flowing down her towering frame like liquid starlight. Her silver hair had been adorned with crystalline filaments that glimmered as though she carried a fragment of the cosmos itself. Every step she took resonated against the polished floor, the patterns across her azure skin glowing brighter as she drew closer. Behind her walked 3 elder ceruleans, their markings elaborate, faces severe with the weight of judgment. Their presence made this bond more than political theater. This was history. When she reached him, Avera extended her hands, palms up. Jack placed his hands in hers, the contrast stark, his warm human skin against her cooler, luminous flesh. Her eyes searched his, and her voice slipped soft enough for only him. "Are you certain? What happens now cannot be undone." Jack's throat tightened. "Never more certain." The eldest cerulean stepped forward, voice reverberating through the chamber. We gather to witness the bonding of Avera Vori and Jack Harrison. By law and custom, their union, once declared, must be honored by all. A ceremonial cord of luminescent fiber was wrapped around their joined wrists, glowing brighter as it tightened. Jack felt a faint vibration travel through his skin, a tingling like static charge. Then something deeper, like his heartbeat had, found an echo outside himself. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A monitor above them displayed readings from the cord's sensors. The elder's voice faltered with astonishment. "The resonance accepts your bond." Avera's eyes widened, luminous with shock. "Resonance," she whispered. Jack leaned closer, whispering, "What does that mean?" "It means our bioelectric fields align perfectly. It is vanishingly rare even among my people. It cannot be faked. It cannot be engineered. It is real." Murmurs swept the chamber. Delegates leaned forward, their expressions torn between awe and disbelief. Nowlan Kalen surged to his feet, his voice a blade slicing through the astonished silence. "This is a mockery. A human cannot." The elder cut him off sharply. "Would you deny the resonance itself, chief negotiator? Our oldest laws recognize it as truth." Nowlan's jaw clenched, fury sparking in his indigo eyes. He had lost control of the narrative, and he knew it. Jack seized the moment, raising his voice. "This bond is not theater. It is proof that humanity and the Cerulean Confederation can walk together, stronger united than divided." Applause broke across parts of the chamber, tentative at first, then growing. Even Director Prell's gelatinous body pulsed in a rhythm. Jack had come to recognize his approval. As the cord was untied and the ceremony concluded, Captain Rivera stepped forward. With a smirk half hidden by his grizzled beard, he produced two simple bands of polished steel. "On Earth, we have a tradition. 2 rings. They symbolize endurance." A murmur of amusement rippled through the crowd as Jack slid one onto Avera's slender finger. She looked down at it as though it were a relic of immeasurable value, her markings pulsing brighter in a pattern Jack could almost swear meant joy. When the crowd erupted in applause, Nowlan remained seated, his face a thundercloud. But the damage was done. His plan to isolate Avera had collapsed. She was no longer a compromise to touch. She was bonded, shielded by law, and celebrated by resonance itself. To attack her now would be to attack the foundation of Cerulean tradition. Later, as the hall emptied, Jack and Avera slipped into a shadowed alcove. Her hand found his, the cord's imprint still tingling against their skin. Her voice was low, threaded with disbelief, resonance. "Jack, this changes everything. For us, for them, for Proxima." Jack squeezed her hand. "Then we make it count." She gazed down at him, luminous eyes reflecting both fear and wonder. "Together," she said. Tomorrow they would walk aboard the Sentinel, into the heart of Nowlan's stronghold. But tonight they had seized the narrative, turned suspicion into awe, and forged a bond no treaty could rival. The council chamber was thick with expectation, the air heavy as though the station itself held its breath. Holographic maps of the Proxima system hung in the center, glittering projections of mineral-rich moons and asteroid belts. Delegates crowded the tiers, murmurs rippling like the undercurrent of a storm. The bonding ceremony of the previous night had changed everything. Jack could feel it in the way eyes lingered on him, not with dismissal, but with wary respect. Avera stood at his side, radiant in formal cerulean robes, her skin patterns still brighter than before, the resonance bond humming faintly whenever their hands brushed. She was calm, poised, but Jack knew her too well now to miss the tension in her stance. Across the chamber, Nowlan Kalen watched like a predator denied its kill. his face unreadable, but his fury crackled like ozone in the air. Director Prell rippled to the podium. We resumed deliberations on Proxima. Both Earth and the Cerulean Confederation have submitted revised proposals. Jack rose, voice steady. Earth proposes joint development, equal stakes in extraction and governance. Resources shared, profits balanced, defensive duties mutual. He let the words settle, then added, Our bond with the Cerulean people demonstrates that trust is possible. Let Proxima be our proof. A hush followed. All eyes turned to Avera. She stepped forward, tall and commanding, her melodic voice carrying. Across the chamber, the Cerulean Confederation has long claimed historical rights to Proxima. Yet history does not own the future. Resonance has shown all of us, that humanity is not an aberration to be contained, but a partner to be embraced. Her gaze swept the room. I support joint development. I will stake my bond on it. The words fell like a thunderclap. Murmurs surged, some shocked, some approving. Nalin shot to his feet, his voice a lash of fury. You dare undermine the Confederation's claim? You betray your post, your people, your oath. Jack braced himself, but Avera did not flinch. No, Chief Negotiator. I uphold a greater oath, to preserve our people from ruin. You would lead us into war. I choose another path. Nalin's face hardened. His hand flicked, and a data slate glowed in his palm. Then let the council see her path. With a flourish, he projected images into the chamber. Encrypted transmissions, surveillance fragments proof that Avera had taken Earth Defense Force data. Gasps rippled through the assembly. She is no partner. She is a thief, a spy. Jack's heart dropped. Around them, the room erupted in accusations, voices rising in a chorus of outrage. Avera stood motionless, eyes on Nalin. Her skin dimmed, but her voice never wavered. It is true. I took the data, not for conquest, but for peace. The uproar swelled until she lifted a hand, her markings glowing brighter, demanding silence. Then she turned to Jack, her gaze unguarded, vulnerable. What I must confess now is worse. Before I ever spoke to you, Jack Harrison, before our first night in the lounge, I was instructed to target you. Cerulean intelligence had identified you as a high compatibility candidate for induced resonance. My mission was to bond with you, to invoke an ancient clause that would have granted the Confederation supremacy over Proxima. The chamber froze. Jack felt the words like knives, each syllable cutting away at the fragile trust he'd built around her. His chest tightened, a hollow ache blooming where warmth had been. So last night, he said hoarsely, the bond. Her voice cracked, but her eyes never left his. Was supposed to be a weapon, but it became something else. Resonance cannot be faked, cannot be forced. What we share is real, and I will prove it. She turned to the council, raising her voice. I publicly renounce the clause. I waive all claims it might grant the Confederation. Proxima must belong to both our peoples, or to neither. A roar erupted through the chamber, shock colliding with disbelief. Nalin's face darkened, fury etched in every line. You dare defy your mandate? You brand yourself traitor. But the elder Ceruleans had risen. One of them spoke, voice deep and resonant. Resonance is law. It binds truth, beyond politics. If she claims her bond is genuine, we cannot deny it. Nor can we deny that she has risked all to place peace above advantage. Director Prell rippled with affirmation. Then it is settled. Proxima shall be developed jointly, under the stewardship of both Earth and the Confederation. Nalin's jaw clenched, but he bowed stiffly. This is not the end, he murmured, his voice carrying just enough to reach Jack and Avera. You have won a moment, nothing more. Jack met his gaze, unflinching. Sometimes a moment is all it takes to change everything. When the session ended, the chamber erupted in chatter, delegations whispering about resonance, about betrayal, about a future no one had foreseen. Jack found Avera in the shadows of the hall. She looked at him, searching his face for condemnation, for rejection. He stepped closer, close enough that only she could hear. "You should have told me." "I know," she whispered, voice breaking. "I was afraid you'd see me as a trap, not as me." He touched her hand, feeling the hum of the bond spark to life between them. "Maybe you were both. But when it mattered, you chose us over orders. That's what I'll remember." Her luminous eyes shimmered, the patterns on her skin pulsing. With relief. "Together, then?" "Together," Jack said, and for the first time since Earth had joined the galactic stage, he believed it.